Hey guys, welcome to Trippy Commentaries and another episode of our WWE Raw reactions. I'm RJ, I'm here with Retro Brett.
Yo, got my bullhammer elbow pad in case RJ gets a little lippy.
And today coming in live from Bulgaria, home of Rusev, Corey. How's it going in Bulgaria? That's crazy.
It's going awesome, man. I decided to come over here and search for Rusev myself, maybe attempt to take him on. Luckily, he is out of the country currently. He was, of course, at the O2 Arena tonight in London for Monday Night Raw. So, yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into it, fellas.
Yeah, absolutely. Watch out. Of course, the what I'm looking at right now, it shows that he's 6 foot 305 pounds. Yeah, make sure to stay clear of him if possible, C-Dub. But let's get right into this episode of Raw. As he mentioned, it came from London, the great country of the UK there. And right off the bat, it started off with the Wyatt family. We've been accustomed to seeing them starting Raw off, doing their rituals. This time, Cena kind of had the jump on them. Corey, what happened?
Well, tonight we saw Bray Wyatt open up the show with the Wyatt family. And one cool touch that I thought that they did is they have, of course, at the beginning of all of the WWE programming, they have the intro with the then, now, forever. It's a montage, of course, of all the prior superstars and some of the current ones. And tonight, they actually did where it interrupted that. And Bray Wyatt, in typical Wyatt family fashion, Bray Wyatt was in the ring, and of course he led the UK crowd in a chorus of "He's got the whole world in his hands," and just as I expected, Bray Wyatt definitely had the crowd in his hands tonight. He went on to put on a really, really great promo, just building up how evil he is, and basically, what he's going to do to end up, continuing to make Cena this monster. And as we could expect, we heard John Cena's music hit, which, of course, everybody expects. Well, he's going to come out, and it's going to be a war of words. John Cena actually came through the crowd, or another area, and he attacked Bray Wyatt, hit the attitude adjustment, and bailed out really quickly. I thought it was a really, really cool segment. It's a good way to build up the heat between the two, going into the big Payback pay-per-view coming up here soon. What did you think about it, RJ?
I thought it was a pretty cool start off. It was nice to see Cena actually ambush the Wyatt family. We don't see Cena do that too much. We've seen the Shield do it recently, and a couple other guys like to do the ambush maneuver. But it was nice to see Cena come out of nowhere, especially because he's got that really memorable theme song. And everybody, like you said, Corey, looked straight towards the entranceway there, and he came from the back. I thought that was pretty cool. Retro Brett, I know you were a little busy. You missed the very beginning. I'm sure you saw the recaps there later on in Raw. What did you think about that?
Well, I mean, obviously, I like it. I like Raw to start out with something other than Triple H or Stephanie McMahon. Thought that was pretty cool. I also liked Cena getting the upper hand there for a little bit because, for the most part, in this rivalry, it's 3-on-1.
Yeah.
And, you got to take any chance you can get. You got to capitalize on any chance you get to lay the smackdown.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and we should mention that Cena does team up with the Usos, something we've kind of seen in the works. We will bring up the main event, which came out later on. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But quick question for you, Corey, because we've seen kind of the rise of these threesomes, for lack of a better term, with these guys. You have Evolution, Shield, the Wyatt family. Do you think perhaps, and there was another, what was it, that one that came out, the
3MB.
Union Jacks? The Union
3MB.
Jacks showed up? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are a bunch of jobbers as well. But basically what I wanted to ask you, Corey, is do you think maybe there's a possibility that Cena and the Usos can kind of combine to make their own threesome?
Oh, definitely, man. I could definitely see them being a one of the trios, like you said. We've got the Shield Evolution. It kind of harkens back to the late 90s where we had a lot of four-man factions in the WWF. We had the Hart Foundation, DX, Los Boricuas, the Nation of Domination, the DOA, on and on. I think that works out well whenever you have both guys who are established and guys maybe like the Shield who are somewhat established but haven't quite got that push to the main event yet. I definitely think there's something to say about strength in numbers as far as booking and how the crowd responds.
Yeah.
I could definitely see the Usos and John Cena being a trio for the future that maybe could do battle with Evolution at some point, or of course the Wyatts as they are now.
Yeah.
I definitely see the rise of the trios in the WWE, the three-man teams for sure.
Yeah, that could be interesting. We do, of course, have the big matchup coming with the Wyatts versus, the Shield versus Evolution. So we'll see what happens, of course, after that, after the pay-per-view has been shown there. But let's move on. Let's get to this Cesaro versus Sheamus matchup. This was actually a pretty big-time matchup as far as two heavy contenders now that Daniel Bryan is out of commission. And we should mention that Daniel Bryan's neck surgery did go well, so thank goodness
Very
for
successful.
that. But getting back to Sheamus versus Cesaro, we saw Cesaro come out victorious, perhaps gaining even more momentum. This was a very big victory. Probably should have taken the title. What is that? Is that the U.S. title that Sheamus has got there, Corey? I know it wasn't a title match in this particular case.
Yeah. Sheamus is the recently crowned United States champion. He, of course, won that big battle royal in which Dean Ambrose put his United States title on the line and lost it a few weeks back. And tonight in the at Raw in the UK, we saw somewhat of a hometown favorite. It was certainly closer to his neighborhood than most of the United States is. But we saw Sheamus fall to Cesaro in what I thought was a really good powerhouse versus powerhouse matchup. Those guys, both of them, as I mentioned about Sheamus last week, all of his stuff in the ring looks really impactful, as does Sheamus. And I thought it was a good match. It was a good way to put Cesaro maybe a little bit further up the card and possibly in the United States title picture in the future. I would venture to guess that we could possibly see, with Cesaro picking up this pinfall win in a non-title match, that we could possibly see Cesaro taking on Sheamus for the United States title, maybe at the upcoming pay-per-view Payback.
I should hope so.
Well, I've been saying for a couple weeks now that they appear to be putting Cesaro kind of on a back burner. Like, leading up to WrestleMania, he was getting really a push, but lately he's been on a back burner. But I think today, beating the U.S. champ, I think that definitely catapults him pretty far into where he used to be a couple months ago.
Yeah, I agree. He's certainly climbing up the ranks once again. Now, getting back to Daniel Bryan, he came out. Stephanie McMahon, of course, announced that he did have the successful surgery, so that's great news. We'll have him back eventually, but something we suspected would happen. Stephanie McMahon is threatening to strip the title.
I was surprised she didn't strip it right there.
Yeah, me too. I thought there was a possibility, but it turns out she's going to hold off for next week. She's going to try to get Daniel Bryan in the building there.
To do the right thing.
Yeah, to do the right thing, whatever. So she did mention a couple names that she might give the title to. She mentioned the Demon Kane, who's been feuding with Daniel Bryan. That'd be kind of fucked up to give it to him, but hey, she's a bitch. BNB, Bad News Barrett, they were in the UK there, London, where Bad News Barrett's from, so she's going to mention him to get a good reaction from the crowd. I personally don't think he's ready for the championship yet, but that could come soon. Batista, the Animal. A lot of people are calling him Bootista now. That's kind of the thing with him, so I don't see that happening. Triple H, she mentioned, that is something I would love. That would be an epic storyline and just a bunch that could come from that. I'd be interested to see if that could happen, because it would mean Triple H would probably have to fight more. But what did you take from that? Do you think that there's any chance she gives the title away here, Retro Brett?
Well, RJ and I were talking earlier in the day, and I actually predicted that they would put it on Triple H because, like Corey said a couple weeks ago, Batista isn't going to be doing a whole lot with them this summer. And Randy Orton, I don't know, he's just there.
Well said. Well said.
And, Triple H is the chief antagonist right now, so I think he's the best option. What do you think there, Corey?
Well, like RJ touched on, Stephanie McMahon definitely covered a few names. She mentioned Kane, of course, which makes sense, with Kane having recently feuded with Daniel Bryan and being responsible for basically dragging his carcass out onto the stage. I believe it was last week on Raw, of course, to put him out for the, so he can recover from the injury. I don't see Kane being the WWE World Heavyweight Champion anytime soon. I believe that ship has sailed as far as Kane goes.
Yes.
Bad news, Barrett, RJ, I have to agree with you. He's not ready for it. Maybe one day. He's certainly a promising young talent. I could definitely see Triple H getting the strap at some point.
That would be epic.
To me, it would be. Number one, it's one of the most logical conclusions right now.
Yes.
Other than Randy Orton, as far as getting the title and carrying it through until Daniel Bryan is healthy.
Yeah.
If they do end up stripping Daniel Bryan of the title, which I don't necessarily expect to happen, I could see someone like either Triple H or Randy Orton, someone to represent the re-upping of the Authority versus Daniel Bryan feud, and kind of carry it as far as in the ring and week to week.
Yeah.
Hopefully Daniel Bryan, his neck surgery went good, and perhaps, he could do something like Stone Cold Steve Austin did on his rise. There was a point there where Stone Cold had neck surgery and he couldn't wrestle, and this was in his heyday.
Yep.
And that was whenever we saw classic segments like the beer truck, and we know Stone Cold coming out and just giving out stunners and throwing the Rock's Intercontinental Championship off of a bridge.
Truly unforgettable.
Which was another fun. So it's not necessarily a given that just because Daniel Bryan is injured, he's going to be stripped of the title. I think that's something to keep in mind as the weeks go on here. I don't necessarily see him having a pay-per-view matchup a couple of weeks removed from surgery. I think that would be a not very smart move for a guy who, from what I understand, seems to be a very intelligent guy. He's definitely into taking care of his body and eating right and stuff like that. So
for sure,
hopefully we can see Daniel Bryan hold on to the title and not have to, be stripped of it, because I think that would kill a lot of his momentum. However, though, like I said, it's not a given that he has to be. He can still be a part of the show without being in any kind of physical roles on the show.
Right.
So time will tell as far as how that works out. Thus far, I think Daniel Bryan's run has been pretty good. He's had a lot of setbacks. He got married the week after WrestleMania, and then the week later his dad died, and then he got hurt. It kind of sucks, but
I would definitely like to see him get involved back in the storyline. I mean, just because he's not wrestling doesn't mean he can't be involved.
I disagree with you, Corey. I think if they strip him of the title and he regains it, that will even give him more momentum.
Good point. Good point.
I don't think it'll lose momentum if they strip it.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. Let's go ahead and move on. There was a pretty interesting tournament, so to speak, I guess you can call it, the Beat the Clock matches they had, where basically whoever wins in the shortest amount of time gets a chance to face off with Bad News Barrett to win is that one the American title? I lose track of them, Corey.
The
That's
Intercontinental.
the Intercontinental title.
Intercontinental. RVD took it. Do you think he has a chance against BMB, and do you think he was the correct victor out of all of the participants? You had Mark Henry amongst others.
Yeah, tonight, in the Beat the Clock challenge, we saw Big E against Ryback. Big E took it in 5 minutes and 2 seconds. Shortly thereafter, we ended up seeing, let's see, who was it? I think Rob Van Dam versus Alberto Del Rio.
Yep.
And, of course, Rob Van Dam ended up with a time of 4 minutes and 15 seconds on the victory. And later on in the evening, we saw Mark Henry take on, who was it? Dolph Ziggler.
Yeah,
That's who
Dolph
it was.
Ziggler. Got close there.
It got close. That ended up going to the time limit draw, of course. And we saw Bad News Barrett attack RVD shortly thereafter to set up their big match at the Payback pay-per-view for the Intercontinental title. I don't see Rob Van Dam getting the Intercontinental title right now.
Nice.
Rob is, of course, a veteran of the ring. I mean, he's been around since the early 90s. Hell of a worker. Right now, he's in one of those part-timer kind of roles with the company. He's one of those guys who can make the younger talent more credible with victories over him, and I think that's going to be the case here at Payback. I think we're going to end up seeing Bad News Barrett successfully defend his title.
Yeah, I have to think so as well.
First, I gotta call out Bad News Bear for stealing my frickin' move, the Bullhammer. But, yeah, well, I got the elbow pad. But I agree with you there, Corey. I think RVD is in the point in his career where he's not winning championships anymore. He's just making people. And I know Mark Henry is in the same position, but he's such a big guy. I really wish they would do something more with him, like what they used to. Like, he would just wreck people. And
Mark Henry?
Yes.
Yeah, he is a big guy. So, yeah, we'll have that matchup. Bad News Barrett definitely did a good job, working himself up to the fans there. Of course, they're going to root for him hard there in England where he's from. And we'll definitely see that matchup. RVD is a pretty exciting guy to watch, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah, always.
So let's go ahead and get to the main event here, guys. Cena versus Luke Harper. So this was a pretty interesting matchup because you had in fact, before we get to that, I actually just want to touch on the Shield matchup real quick, just because the Shield, well, it's actually Rollins took on Batista. Last week we saw Batista versus Ambrose. Once again, there was another disqualification. It was kind of funny how everybody ended up out there. It was one of these setup matches for the big matchup coming in the pay-per-view. We didn't see anything resolved. We didn't see anything continue with the storyline. We just saw another disqualification. Roman Reigns did have to get stitches, so they did play up that. That was kind of cool, and he is once again being shown off as the powerhouse. But moving on, let's go ahead and get to the main event, Cena versus Luke Harper. This was pretty interesting because we saw the Usos come out with Cena to make sure he had backup. Now, they ended up both falling victim to the Sister Abigail, and eventually, as we suspected, there was a disqualification in that matchup as well, where Cena ended up getting a Sister Abigail as well up at the top of the entranceway. We saw chaos ensue. Retro Brett, what do you make of that big main event there?
Well, it's leading up to the pay-per-view. Cena suffered, I believe it was 2 Sister Abigails, one in the ring and one on the stage.
Horrific.
I'm actually surprised that the Usos couldn't recover from their Sister Abigails and help Cena out, but I guess, that's the way the cookie crumbles, but I guess some people are tougher than others. No offense, guys, no offense, yeah, it should be a good pay-per-view with the Shield, and y'all laughed at me for putting Seth Rollins in my top 10.
Yeah, he came out.
Look what he did today.
Yeah, he looked okay. What did you take out of that final match there, Corey?
Well, of course, like Retro Brett touched on, it was a DQ. Bray Wyatt hits the Sister Abigail in the ring, and then Rowan and Harper basically beat the crap out of Cena up the entrance ramp. And we saw Bray Wyatt hit him with a Sister Abigail on the stage, and then we saw Bray Wyatt start singing again just as he opened up the show, singing "He's Got the Whole World in His Hands" as Luke Harper counted to 10, which of course refers to the fact that at Payback it's going to be a last man standing match where the loser is a man who cannot answer the count of 10, get to his feet before a count of 10. So I could see this being a huge matchup. We saw Cena backed by the Usos, and of course Luke Harper backed by Bray Wyatt and the rest of the Wyatt family. It's going to be a huge main event match that's hopefully going to be able to pick up some slack where the Daniel Bryan situation is lacking right now due to injury. And it's just another chapter in the Bray Wyatt John Cena saga. Is Cena going to turn to the dark side? Time will tell. We will see at Payback.
Oh yeah, and the last thing we'll mention here in this episode of Raw Reactions is Rusev whooped the ass of another jobber, and he continues his destruction through the WWE. We'll see what comes of that. So I'm RJ for Retro Brett. We here at Trippy Commentaries really appreciate you joining us. Make sure to stay tuned. Drop your comment on what you think of tonight's Raw. Corey over there in Bulgaria, hopefully you find yourself a good meal, and go ahead and take it out for us, buddy.
Yeah, guys, make sure you subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. Drop us some comments. I got to show some love for my hopefully future wife, Alicia Fox, with a big victory over RJ's favorite Paige tonight, the Divas Champion. She kind of went nuts afterwards. It was awesome. Stay tuned, guys. Hopefully we'll have some craziness kind of like that in the future. And, follow the buzzards.
Stay trippy, guys. And if Corey gets Alicia Fox, I get Paige. Retro Brett, I guess that leaves you with Lana. Not too bad.
Oh, it could be worse.
We'll see you guys next time.